Hello, family. Welcome back, and thank you so much for the support. Before we get into anything else, I want you to look at what's on the screen right now. This is a repost by Misan Harriman. No commentary, no caption, just 3 dots. And sometimes silence says far more than outrage ever could. Because what those 3 dots are pointing to is not just a clip, it's a reckoning. This is the moment GB News and Carol Malone were forced to do something they almost never do when it comes to Megan Sussex and her family: admit they were wrong. Publicly. On air. With no wiggle room. And the reason Misan Harriman's sharing this matters is because he understands exactly how rare this is. He understands how media narratives are built, protected, and defended, even when they are false. His repost isn't casual. It's deliberate. It's a marker in time saying, remember this, because it doesn't happen often. What GB News was forced to correct was a claim made about Doria Ragland, the mother of Megan Sussex, a private citizen, a woman who has not sought fame, attention, or controversy. She was falsely accused on air of having been imprisoned, an outright lie that originated not from verified reporting, but from long-debunked online misinformation. That detail is critical. Carol Malone admitted that the claim came from unverified online misinformation. Those words should never be associated with a television broadcast, let alone be spoken as a post hoc explanation for why a lie was aired as fact. That admission alone confirms a catastrophic failure of editorial standards. This wasn't speculation. This wasn't opinion. This was presented as a factual statement about a real person's life. And it was wrong. What makes this especially disturbing is that this particular lie is not new. It has circulated for years in corners of the internet, obsessed with discrediting Megan Sussex by attacking her background, her family, and her identity. It is a lie rooted in racism, classism, and the persistent idea that Megan Sussex must come from something suspect in order to justify the hostility directed at her. GB News did not invent this lie, but they legitimized it. And once a broadcaster legitimizes a lie, it becomes exponentially more dangerous. Viewers assume checks were done, that sources were verified, that basic journalistic diligence was applied. None of that happened here. Instead, a smear crossed the threshold from internet rumor to televised fact. That is why the apology matters. Not because it was sincere, it wasn't. It was stiff, controlled, and clearly lawyered, but because it was forced. And in being forced, it exposes how this ecosystem actually works. This apology didn't happen because Carol Malone suddenly reflected overnight. It didn't happen because GB News discovered a commitment to accuracy. It happened because viewers complained, because people documented what was said, because Ofcom was contacted, because the pressure became impossible to ignore. That's not cancel culture. That's consequence. And it's telling how rare this is when it comes to Megan Sussex-related coverage. British media outlets routinely publish corrections when errors are made about politicians, institutions, or members of the royal household. But when it comes to Megan Sussex and her family, errors are usually ignored, reframed, or quietly buried. This time, that tactic failed. Doria Ragland is not a public figure in the traditional sense. She did not sign up for this. And yet, she has been repeatedly dragged into narratives designed to undermine her daughter, narratives that paint her as irresponsible, suspicious, or criminal without evidence. The fact that a major broadcaster repeated such a claim should concern everyone, regardless of where they stand on Megan Sussex. Because if this can happen to Doria Ragland, it can happen to anyone without institutional power. This is why so many responses under Misan Harriman's repost are calling for lawsuits, not because people are bloodthirsty, but because they are exhausted by the idea that certain families are open season for lies, while others are protected by deference and restraint. Whether legal action happens or not, the point has already landed. GB News has now publicly acknowledged that Doria Ragland was defamed. That acknowledgement lives forever. It cannot be edited out of existence. And that is precisely why Misan Harriman's repost is so powerful. He doesn't need to add commentary because the moment speaks for itself. It's a reminder that accountability doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes with a clipped apology read under legal supervision, and that in itself is revealing. What this incident also exposes is how differently online misinformation is treated depending on who it targets. When lies circulate about Megan Sussex or her family, they are often treated as plausible, repeatable, and worth amplifying. When misinformation targets others, it is dismissed immediately. That double standard is the story. GB News would like this to be seen as an isolated error and one-off mistake, but patterns matter, and this fits into a long-running pattern of reckless commentary about Megan Sussex that prioritizes outrage over accuracy. The apology avoids addressing that pattern. It does not mention bias. It does not mention why such a claim felt safe to air in the first place. It simply acknowledges the falsehood and moves on. But viewers are not moving on. People understand that this was not just about getting a detail wrong. This was about character assassination, about reinforcing a narrative that Megan Sussex comes from something unworthy, something criminal, something that needs to be exposed. And that is why this correction feels momentous, not because it fixes everything, but because it cracks the illusion that these outlets are untouchable. This moment should also serve as a warning to other commentators who rely on rumors, dog whistles, and insinuations. The audience is more informed now. Screenshots are kept, clips are archived, complaints are filed. Silence is no longer guaranteed. For years, Megan Sussex has spoken about how lies spread faster than truth and how corrections rarely catch up to the damage already done. This apology proves that while the system is slow, it can be forced to respond, if enough people demand it. And make no mistake, this wasn't about protecting Megan Sussex's image. This was about defending a mother who did not deserve to be slandered on national television. It was about insisting that basic standards apply even when the target is connected to someone the media has decided to vilify. So, when you see people celebrating this moment, understand what they are actually celebrating. Not embarrassment, not humiliation, but the rare instance where a lie did not get the last word. Misan Harriman's 3 dots are not the end of the story. They're a pause, a reminder, a signal that people are watching and that the old rules no longer apply unchallenged. Because once accountability enters the room, even briefly, it changes the atmosphere. And GB News, whether they like it or not, has now contributed a permanent reminder of what happens when misinformation collides with consequences.